Gamescom is underway right now, and with it, we've got some news and announcements. Not quite as much new stuff as I was hoping for, but 2022's kind of been that way with gaming. One announcement, though, in particular that has caught my eye was the reveal of Dune Awakening, a brand new open-world survival MMO from Funcom. We have actually known about this game for a few years. Back in 2019, Funcom announced a new Dune MMO had begun pre-production at their Oslo studios, but it wasn't until just now that we got the official reveal. What's really interesting to me is just the fact that Funcom has a pretty long history with MMOs, dating all the way back to 2001's Anarchy Online, and then in the following years, they made Age of Conan and The Secret World. Now, none of those games took the industry by storm, but they were fairly well regarded, and if nothing else, were trying some interesting things. And then, of course, most recently, Funcom is known for the multiplayer survival game Conan Exiles, which while this game got off to a rough start, it does seem to have turned things around and is currently sitting at a very positive rating on Steam. Now, with Dune Awakening, it seems like their plan is to combine their past experiences together, making an MMO and a survival game. In fact, they explicitly said so as much in the reveal of this game. What exactly that's going to mean, we'll have to see. The hope, of course, is that it isn't just a regular old survival game that they slap the MMO label on, but that there is a true sense of scale in the size of the world and the number of players. And it appears like that is going to be the case. Before we dive in, though, I just want to let you know, we're going to be doing some sponsor integrations here and there in the videos. YouTube has just graced us with demonetization on videos recently. It's been a ton of fun, let me tell you. Today's video is sponsored by Marvel Strike Force, a mobile squad RPG where you can battle with your favorite team of superheroes and villains in a fight to save the universe from threats like Doctor Doom, Ultron, and Apocalypse. You'll collect a roster of characters and then go out completing missions, unlocking gear and resources, which you will use to get stronger, taking on more challenging PvE threats, or battling other players in the game's PvP. The game features a large and ever-expanding roster of characters from the Marvel multiverse. New users are even able to unlock Thor, Hulk, and She-Hulk for free for a limited time. And the most recent update, Age of Apocalypse, takes players on a journey to find, confront, and eventually unlock Apocalypse. In the meantime, you're tasked with discovering and recruiting Apocalypse's legendary Four Horsemen. If you are interested in learning more and trying Marvel Strike Force for yourself, use the QR code on screen or check out the link in the description below. All right, so what do we know about Dune Awakening? Well, as of now, a bulk of the information comes from their website and the Steam page, where they have provided enough details for us to make some educated guesses based on the history of this game and what they're saying about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the details. So the basic description says this: Dune Awakening combines the grittiness and creativity of survival games with the social interactivity of large-scale, persistent multiplayer games to create a unique and ambitious open-world survival MMO. Rise from survival to dominance in a vast and seamless Araxis shared by thousands of players. From that description and the fact that we know this is kind of meant as a follow-up, a successor to Conan Exiles, I'm going to assume the following. It's looking like their plan is to have many of the elements of typical survival games, but applied into a larger open world. So that whole process of starting out with nothing, gathering materials, crafting items, building a base, going out to fight PvE and PvP threats, all while working towards better and better stuff, that is what I expect from the survival side of this game. But it's worth noting that most games like this, most full-on survival games, are relatively small in scale. Servers with a lot of times under 100 players, or even the survival games that do break 100 players per server, tend to have loading screens or other aspects to compensate for that high player count. But the last bit of this description specifically says it is a vast and seamless open world shared by thousands of players. And I'm not really sure what to make of this. I mean, it sounds great if it's possible, and I'm not sure it is. We at least don't have any examples currently on the market of survival games of the sandbox nature with construction and base building that have open servers with thousands of people. We we don't have examples of that. So this leads me to the conclusion that this game is probably going to go in either one of two directions. Either A, it will not be nearly as sandboxy as most survival games, and we could expect maybe limited building. So, maybe they've got all of the gathering and crafting stuff, but the base building is restricted on a smaller scale, is with smaller structures, or designated to specific instanced areas. Or the world isn't actually fully seamless, shared by thousands of players all in the same area at the same time, and either we will have hard loading screens here and there, maybe not between the zones, but to specific areas, maybe to where the housing is allowed, or they'll use some sort of phasing where players will come in and out of your world. So while there are thousands of people, you're never going to see thousands of people. You'll see people come and go, and then when they break your line of sight, they will just disappear from the server. We're probably not picking servers that thousands of people are on like New World is the case, and also having all of the sandboxy stuff. It's just, that's really hard to do unless the game has like 2 polygons, like unless the visual fidelity is way on the lower end, and I'm not expecting that. I'm just not. Let's see what else they had to say though, because there's quite a bit more. They say survive the most dangerous planet in the universe, build shelters against sandstorms, maintain your still suit, and master the old ways to walk even the deepest deserts. Avoid or be devoured by the colossal sandworms that dwell beneath the sands. Lots of cool bits of information here. Building shelters against sandstorms. Sounds like we might be able to construct these tiny little camps on the go. Maintain your suit. That seems like typical upkeep mechanics would be reasonable. Maybe we have to repair the suits, upgrade the suits, get the sand out of the crevices. I'm sure that's a real pain in the butt. In terms of this mastering the old ways to walk even the deepest deserts, this sounds a whole lot just like character progression systems, whether that's unlocking new abilities and leveling up, or even just crafting specialty items and or vehicles that will allow us to access otherwise inaccessible areas of the map. And the last bit in this section, the massive sandworms that seem like they're just going to be a consistent threat. I expect this will be kind of like a world event where we will get some warning signs that a sandworm is about to emerge, and then either we leave or it just straight up eats you. Okay, the next section is pretty exciting as it touches on the idea of this dynamic and evolving world. They say we will get to explore the ever-changing face of Araxis, walking through things like long-forgotten biological testing stations or scavenging the wreckage of fallen spaceships. We will be heading into these unmapped sectors to be the first to discover secrets and riches before the storms once again shift and the sands alter the landscape. What's really exciting about this is it does seem like we might be getting some sort of regular changes to the environment, to the landscape, where storms roll in, shifting the sands that will cover up some areas that you may have already visited, but also uncover brand new ones that have yet to be explored. They could just be referring to updates, like, hey, patch 1.5 is here, the storm happened, and there's some new areas available. That could be what this is touching on, but the wording of it does have me believing like this could be a regular part of the game, and that's a very cool concept for an open world survival MMO. If there were regularly these sandstorms that covered up and uncovered areas, making it very dynamic and changing the play space on a regular basis, that's a very cool concept. If it really is semi-frequent, I think that would be awesome. That would really be awesome. Next up here, they mention resource harvesting as well as large-scale battles. Hunt for spice blooms to deploy your harvester and then protect them from opportunistic raiders and rival factions. And then also soak the sand in blood as massive battles shift seamlessly from foot to vehicles and from ground to ornithopters in the sky. Man, does this sound great. Okay, so this first bit, hunt for spice blooms and deploy your harvester and then protect it from raiders and rival factions. This immediately gets me thinking of Firefall's thumper system. In Firefall, you had this thumper that you would call in. You'd scan the environment, find a resource location, and then call a thumper on those locations, which would start harvesting the resource. That noise would then attract other enemies, and then you would have to basically fend them off while the resources were harvested. And I just loved this system. It was like a fun little event that you could activate yourself. And I liked it better than the typical MMO resource gathering where you're just picking herbs or chopping down trees or mining ore. This was like resource harvesting, but combat focused. And it sounds like that is exactly what they're going to be doing here. We do know PvP is going to be in the game, and presumably this would be a contended event as well, where people could come in and take your resources. And then also just the other part that's talking about this game having massive battles that shift seamlessly from foot to vehicles and from ground to the air. I mean, is this just like PlanetSide or Battlefield where we've got all of these different elements? I mean, if it's true and they really do have these seamless big open world with thousands of players, it's just, that could be crazy. I really don't even know if that is possible with today's tech. Like, I am highly skeptical for this reason alone. These big open battles with these multi-dimensions of ground and air and vehicles tossed in. If they could deliver, that's sweet. Like, that would be great. In the next section, they talk about factions and economy. They say, make a name for yourself within the world. You will build your own faction through spice harvesting, trade, subterfuge, and open conflict. We're going to have resource harvesting, which goes back to that whole thumping thing earlier. There will be trading, and then either sabotaging or just straight up fighting your enemies. This is all pretty standard elements of the survival genre. And then the final main bullet point here touches on base building, crafting, and player progression. They say, tailor every aspect of your character, consume spice to conquer your senses and acquire powerful abilities, gaining skills and spells or whatever is fiction appropriate. Hone your craft to become sought out for the finest creations. So there will be crafting and leveling, and you can be like a master crafter. And then construct your fortress in the style of your own choosing. I read elsewhere as well that there was mention of you starting out with like a small thing, a little survival hut, and then being able to upgrade it and making it larger and larger. So it does seem, based on what they're saying, that they will have some sense of scale with the building. They call it a fortress. There's lots of things that come to mind when you hear that you can construct a fortress. I guess the question becomes, how rigid is it, like in terms of where you can place it and the flexibility and freedom that you have with what you can construct? Are you leveling up a tent to a fortress and all fortresses look the same? Or are you building it piecemeal, you know what I mean? All questions that just will not be answered anytime soon. So that is everything from the like official descriptive overview of the game that's found on the Steam page as well as their website. A couple of other things worth touching on. First of all, they're hiring for devs still. Over on Funcom's website, there were numerous positions available in multiple departments, ranging from like the art side, the coding side, to the technical side. And when I see something like this, the immediate assumption is that they're nowhere near the finish line, and it seems like they aren't. We don't even have a release year right now. We don't. They haven't even said 2023 release window. Like, there's been no specifics. I think it's possible though, because as I mentioned, this game does have a history. We first learned about it back in 2019, and originally it was announced as an open world survival game without the MMO attachments. But in the year since, a few things have happened. So in April 2020, during an investor call, Funcom said, this is a game that is still a few years away and will be a more ambitious and robust version of Conan Exiles, designed to be a games as a service from the onset. So that gives us an idea of their intended monetization model. Everything with games as a service, season pass, cash shop, cosmetics, everything that you might expect. Later that same year in December, they announced the scope of the project was expanding. They said it was already an ambitious project when we first announced it last year, but the scope has expanded further during pre-production. 1 year later, in December 2021, we learned that German development studio Nuclear was onboarded as a co-developer. They would be helping to realize this expanded scope and specifically would be aiding in work with vehicular-based gameplay. And then just a few short months after that, at the beginning of 2022, Funcom announced that they were adding a second co-developer, Abstraction, who would be assisting with engine, gameplay, and other core systems. What we should expect from this game: its origins was Conan Exiles, but bigger, and then it got even bigger. That would be a reasonable assumption. That should be the headspace you're in when you're thinking of what this Dune MMO is actually going to be. It'll be a survival game, but at a massive scale. Apparently, a massive multiplayer online scale, an MMO scale, right? So, right now, all we really have is marketing. We haven't seen anything about the game. We've got a cinematic trailer and some bullet points, and we're extrapolating a lot based on the game's description, but no gameplay footage, just vague descriptors. But I think almost like maybe with like the early process of actually making video games, thinking about the possibilities, brainstorming what these games could be, it's just fun, like I really enjoy it. I enjoy thinking about what could be with these things. And I think there's enough details about the origin of this game and then everything they've said now with the official reveal that paint a pretty solid picture. And then also, like, the most grounded thing that we do have is just the company's track record, right? And that track record is Anarchy Online, Age of Conan, Secret World, World, and then most recently Conan Exiles. None of these games are earth-shattering, and none of them have really had any mainstream success, not in a true sense. I'm not saying nobody plays these, but these aren't like huge blockbusters. I will say they've made interesting games with cool settings and unique concepts that there have been people who enjoyed. They do have fan bases. They might be smaller. They do seem fairly avid. For all those reasons, I'm pretty hopeful for this upcoming Dune MMO. I think there is a lot of potential. Still a lot of guesswork, but we will wait and see. I'm sure we'll be getting new information soon enough. They have beta signups, so they got to be somewhere near release, right? Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. That's gonna do it for me today, guys, though. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.